In the late 1990s, the automotive world stood at a crossroads. Technology was evolving, supercars were pushing the limits, but no one had yet dared to dream the impossible. Until Ferdinand Piëch, the head of Volkswagen Group, decided to resurrect Bugatti. For decades, the Bugatti name had faded into the shadows of history. Once legendary for icons like the Type 35 and the Royale, it had become little more than a forgotten chapter in automotive heritage. But in 1998, Volkswagen Group acquired Bugatti and unveiled a plan many would call pure madness. Ferdinand Piëch's vision was anything but simple. He gave his engineers one directive: build the most powerful, the fastest, and the most luxurious car the world has ever seen. But with one condition: it had to be a real, road-legal production car. At the time, such an idea seemed almost impossible. The goal was set at 1,000 horsepower, while the most powerful supercars of the era barely reached 500 or 600. Volkswagen's engineers initially thought it couldn't be done. A car like this would either overheat or the sheer power would be impossible to put on the road. But then Piëch made a statement that stunned everyone. If it's not going to be the best car in the world, then we won't build it at all. And with that, the story began. In 1999, Bugatti unveiled its first concept car, the EB118. Soon after came the EB218 and the 18/3 Chiron prototypes. They were luxurious, they were powerful, but they weren't yet insane. Piëch wanted more. He declared, "We don't just want a supercar. We want a miracle that will shatter the limits of engineering." That's when a new name emerged: Veyron, a tribute to the legendary driver Pierre Veyron, who had won the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1939. The engineers now faced an almost terrifying challenge: top speed, over 400 kilometers per hour. Power, 1,001 horsepower. Luxury, the comfort of a Rolls-Royce. Handling, sharper than a Ferrari. This wasn't just a car, it was an impossible dream. As one engineer would later recall, "We were told to build a car that physics said was impossible." By the year 2000, the first prototypes were put to the test. The results, however, were disastrous. The engine overheated. The chassis couldn't handle the immense power. The aerodynamics failed to keep the car stable. One test driver later admitted, "It felt like the car was built to kill me." Volkswagen's leadership began to consider giving up. But Piëch's response was uncompromising. "I don't care how much it costs. Make it happen." Even as the world doubted them, Volkswagen continued to pour billions of dollars into the project. And thus, one of the most challenging car projects in history was born: the Bugatti Veyron. This wasn't just a car, it was the ego of engineers, the frontier of technology, and the wild ambition of one man, Ferdinand Piëch. But the story was only just beginning. The heart of a car defines its soul. For the Bugatti Veyron, that heart was unlike anything the world had ever seen. A W16 engine with 4 turbochargers, producing over 1,000 horsepower. But creating this monster nearly destroyed the project. The Veyron's greatest secret lay in its W16 engine. This engine wasn't simply invented from scratch. It was the fusion of 2 8-cylinder VR engines. Remember Volkswagen's VR6 technology? The W16 was built on that foundation. By combining 2 engines, the engineers created a giant 16-cylinder, 8-liter powerhouse. But problems quickly emerged. The engine overheated. Every turbo produced incredible amounts of heat. To cool this beast, more than 10 radiators were needed. Yes, the Bugatti Veyron has 10 radiators. 2 large engine cooling radiators, 2 intercooler radiators, oil radiators, turbo cooling system, air conditioning radiator. Just the cooling system alone cost more than the entire engine of a normal car. By 2001, the first engine tests had begun. Later, the engineers would admit that everything was horrific. The 1,001 horsepower goal was initially out of reach. Turbo lag was so intense that the car became nearly uncontrollable. Extreme heat caused some engines to explode during testing. One test driver later recalled, When you press the throttle, the car didn't just move, it wanted to tear the road apart. A conventional gearbox simply couldn't handle this kind of power. So a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission capable of transferring such force was commissioned. But this transmission was so complex that its manufacturer, Ricardo, admitted, no transmission on this planet could handle this power. And yet we had to build it from scratch. The result, the Veyron's transmission was so expensive that just repairing it would cost $150,000. The greatest danger, however, came from the tires. No company had ever produced tires capable of withstanding speeds over 400 kilometers per hour. For the Veyron, Michelin created a completely special tire. Even changing these tires was insanely expensive. A single set of Veyron tires, $40,000. But you couldn't just swap the tires, you needed entirely new rims as well. A full set, $120,000, and they had to be replaced every 15,000 kilometers. Every day a new problem arose. Volkswagen had already spent over 1 billion euros. Internal reports stated, this car is technically insane, but if we succeed, it will change automotive history forever. By 2003, the engine finally ran stable for the first time. The results were staggering. 1,001 horsepower 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 2.5 seconds top speed, 407 kilometers per hour. For the first time in history, a production car had broken the 400 kilometers per hour barrier. But behind this raw power lay billions in losses and thousands of failed tests. The Bugatti engineers now knew they had achieved the impossible. But one question remained: could this ever be sold to real customers? In the next chapter of the story, you'll discover how the Veyron's first test drives were filled with disasters, how the drivers' lives were put at risk, and how the world reacted in sheer shock when they saw this giant unleashed for the first time. Speed is more than just a number. At 400 kilometers per hour, physics itself becomes your enemy. Every bolt, every screw, every component of the car is pushed beyond its limits. By 2003, the engine was finally running smoothly, and the next challenge was pushing the car to its top speed. The Arlesian test track in Germany was chosen for this monumental task. Owned by Volkswagen, it offered one unparalleled advantage: a 9-kilometer straight stretch, something no other place on Earth could match. But here, driving wasn't just a test of engineering, it was a fight for the driver's life. The first test drivers admitted that up to 300 kilometers per hour, the car felt almost normal. But beyond 350 kilometers per hour, everything changed. The airflow seemed to try to lift the car off the ground. Even the smallest technical failure could mean instant death for the driver. The braking systems burned out after every test. One driver later said, at 370 kilometers per hour, you stop breathing. Not because you want to, but because your body forgets how to. The Veyron's design wasn't just about beauty. Every detail was tested hundreds of times. The rear spoiler deployed automatically, preventing the car from lifting off the ground. There was a special switch called top speed mode. Without it, the car couldn't reach 400 kilometers per hour. In this mode, the rear wing almost fully retracted, reducing aerodynamic drag. But there was a risk: extremely low grip. At 400 kilometers per hour, if the tires lost contact with the road, disaster was inevitable. During a secret test in France, the engineers were pushing the car to its limits. The result? The car reached 380 kilometers per hour. Suddenly, one of the tires blew out. The car veered off the track, but miraculously, the driver survived. This incident sent shockwaves through Volkswagen's leadership. They had already spent billions, yet the car could still be dangerous for customers. To maintain 400 kilometers per hour, the Veyron was equipped with carbon ceramic brakes. These brakes were inspired by airplane technology. During braking, the rear spoiler would also deploy as an air brake. But even with these innovations, the brakes caught fire after every test. As the engineers said, we didn't just need brakes to stop the car, we needed brakes to survive the car. In 2005, despite all the challenges, Bugatti finally reached 407 kilometers per hour. the automotive world was stunned. Neither Ferrari, nor Lamborghini, nor McLaren, none even came close. In an instant, the Veyron claimed the title of the fastest car in the world. But behind the glory, Volkswagen's leadership knew the truth. Every Veyron sold cost the company 5 million euros in losses. The Bugatti Veyron had already ushered in a new era in automotive history. But now another problem emerged. Who would buy a car this expensive and risky? With a price tag of $1.25 million, production costs were even higher. Every sale meant a financial loss for the company. But this was only the beginning of the story. In the next video, you'll discover how the first customers got their hands on the Veyron and the challenges they faced in daily driving. How the supersport model was created, making the Veyron the fastest car in the world and breaking records. The Veyron's impact on pop culture, its legendary role in films, games, and music. If you want to see the continuation of this incredible story, checkmark like the video, checkmark subscribe to our channel, checkmark share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think all this risk was worth it? Remember, the legend of the Bugatti Veyron is just beginning. The next video will take you deep into the hidden world of technology, speed, and prestige.